I've said consistently, after more than 5 very difficult decades, the relationship between our governments will not be transformed overnight. At the same time, as we do wherever we go around the world, I made it clear that the United States will continue to speak up on behalf of democracy, including the right of the Cuban people to decide their own future.
Give me a list of the political prisoners and I will release them immediately. Just mention a list. What political prisoners? Give me a name or names.
No es correcto preguntarnos por preso político. Dígame el nombre del preso político.
Political prisoners in general. Please give me the name of a political prisoner.
For more than half a century, the sight of a U.S. president here in Havana would have been unimaginable. But this is a new day. Es un nuevo día between our two countries.
Powerful words from President Barack Obama and Cuban President Raul Castro during a news conference in Cuba where the president has been visiting since Sunday. President Barack Obama has had candid conversations with Castro and other Cuban officials about topics ranging from mending relationships between the two nations, the infamous 54-year trade embargo imposed on Cuba by the United States, along with human rights and technology advancements in the region. President Obama has been making most of his visit in addition to various tourist stops. First of all, again, Sunday afternoon, he arrived in Havana, Cuba, had a meet and greet there as well, the U.S. Embassy, and went sightseeing an hour later. Also, while he has been there, one of the things that he has done, he has also had a wreath-laying ceremony, which took place on yesterday, a welcoming ceremony, and then, of course, that one-on-one meeting with President Castro. It is not, though, included meeting with Fidel Castro. And then they've had expanded meetings between U.S. and Cuban officials, statements to the press, followed by the Entrepreneurship Summit, and finally the state dinner. Folks, today's schedule isn't letting up either. The president will address Cuban residents this morning. Then he'll meet with dissidents and civil society leaders. He'll get a little time to kick back and enjoy the baseball game between the Tampa Bay Rays and Cuban national team before heading to the airport to fly back to the United States. And so certainly a lot of things happening right there. Also, Soledad O'Brien is there. She's actually moderating a couple of sessions as well. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up with her on tomorrow. Joining us on the phone right now from Cuba to talk about this important visit is Congressman Charlie Rangel of New York, Congressman Al Green of Houston. And gentlemen, how you doing?
Okay, Roland, this is Charlie Rangel, and in view of the terrorist attack in Belgium, it makes this trip even more important as the president is seeking the end of the Cold War and peace and prosperity to this hemisphere.
Congressman Green, are you there?
I'm here, and I'm honored to be honored with the Honorable Charlie Rangel, the great Charlie Rangel. And I, too, would like to express some sympathy for those persons who have lost their lives and wounded in Belgium. And I'm also very honored to be a part of this delegation with a president who has chosen engagement and negotiation over estrangement and confrontation. And I'm very proud to say also that he still makes human rights a centerpiece of his agenda wherever he goes. I was fortunate enough to be with him when he went to Kenya, Ethiopia, and he took that same message there.
Congressman Rangel, I want to talk about that and because it's very interesting. The president has had lots of critics about this trip to Cuba, but President Nixon went to China. President Reagan went to the Soviet Union. We now have relations with Vietnam. Also, numerous presidents go to Saudi Arabia. What's the difference between human rights abuses in China and Saudi Arabia, yet one is praised, yet one is condemned? Is it oil?
No, it's just the Republicans who said as soon as the president was sworn in that no matter what he does, that they would be opposed to. The American people have no issues with peace and trade with Cuba. There is no question in my mind, if we were to have a vote on this issue, that my bill, which I put in as soon as I got here, removing all types of impediment to trade, would pass. They won't let the bill get on the floor. It's all been centered around Floridian Cuban interests, Cuban-American interests. Those interests have gone. Let's hope that this election will put the impediments we've had behind us so that we can move forward and America will prosper, the Cubans will prosper. It is just good for the entire world.
Congressman Rangel, there's a unique relationship that exists between African Americans and Cubans. Congressman Green, can you also speak to that in terms of that relationship? We talked about it yesterday. Is it an identification of oppression that exists between African Americans and Cubans?
Thank you. There is a relationship and a kinship, if you will. We had an opportunity to meet with some of the Afro-Cubans yesterday, and one of the things that was called our attention was that there has been a silence with reference to the discrimination that they have suffered. And they want to reach across the Gulf of Mexico to us, and they'd like for us to join them and help them, not only in terms of having their voices heard, but also to help them develop entrepreneurship. They're interested in developing business relationships with us. I think it's a great opportunity for us to span the chasm and do some things together. I'd like to add this. Mr. Rangel has been the preeminent voice on this subject for years. In Congress, before others were on the train that they're on now, Mr. Rangel was the person who was leading with the tip of the spear, if you will. And I'm just pleased to know that he finds favor with what's going on, because his favor means a lot to the rest of us. We follow his lead. One more thing on this. As we do this and engage with our brethren here, it's important for us to remember that there is a desire for sovereignty to be recognized. The Cuban people are interested in working with us, but they don't want to be told what they should and should not do. I saw evidence of pride that they have in what's going on here yesterday, and the two presidents shook hands after the speech. I was in a venue with three ladies, and they started to applaud, and one of them had tears to well in her eyes. They really want to see this relationship work. I agree with Mr. Rangel. I think that it will work. I quite frankly think that the embargo is going to come down. It may take a while, but I think it will come down. It will come down from the ground up, because the people at the bottom are going to make this happen. This relationship is able to develop.
Last question for Congressman Rangel. And Congressman, what about that? The president said the embargo is going to end, but Republicans in Congress, they say not going to happen. When do you think that will take place?
As soon as our multinational corporations start receiving the benefits of the profits that are going to be made with trade, when they see what can happen for their shareholders, you can bet your sweet life pressure will be put on the House and Senate. It's only a couple of people that are causing this not to move forward. And even though Congressman Green affords me a great honor in talking about my leadership, the work that he's done on this bill since last night, the president even mentioned that we all have done a great deal, but we have so much more to do. And I am confident that the major political problems that we used to have, most of it emanating out of Cuban Americans in Florida, that is behind us. And I think in November, in the next election, we will remove any vestiges of impediments to bring peace, tranquility, and trade to our brothers and sisters in Cuba. As a matter of fact, the Harlem Chamber of Commerce will be coming in tomorrow. I will be here to greet them. And we already are starting an African-American jazz relationship. We're bringing Harlem and Havana together. And so we have already started long before we reach this milestone to bring out African-American and Cuban-American, African-Cuban relationship closer together.
All right. Congressman Charlie Rangel, Congressman Al Green, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Joining me right now on Skype is Ode Casamayor-Cineros, Associate Professor of Latin American and Caribbean Literatures and Cultures at the University of Connecticut. Joining me on the panel here in D.C., Dr. Wilmer Leon. Also, of course, he is with Sirius XM Radio, political scientist. Also, Avis Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist for the Exceptional Leadership Institute, and Cleo Monago, behavioral expert as well. And so, first of all, folks, you heard both members of Congress right there. It's interesting to hear Charlie Rangel say, look, when big business in America speaks, only then will Congress act and get rid of this embargo.
And that's why President Obama brought corporate executives with him on this trip, because Congressman Rangel was absolutely right. As soon as the dollars start flowing,
money talks,
and everything else walks.
Well, the opportunity to make money in Cuba is not recent. The embargo was what got in the way of them having those kind of relationships. I've been to Cuba before, and there's always been great room there for these kind of relationships. What I'm interested in finding out if Assata Shakur is going to be left alone, and this relationship, resolving this this barrier, will create open season on her, because she's been there, and I met her when I was there.
Well, first of all, the Cubans have said point blank that's not even on the table, Avis.
Exactly. They've already said that's not even in play. So I believe that
she will be on our agenda, though.
I know that she's going to be on our agenda, but they're not going to fall for that. No, she's safe, I believe. Oh. And I also believe that what this president did was he opened the door. You're right, those relationships, those opportunities have already been there, but we have not had the political will to move forward with those opportunities. And I think that this president has really opened up the door for that to happen. And now that the corporations will be able to, have political cover in terms of pursuing those relationships, I don't think it will be long before they put pressure on people in Congress to make sure that those doors are wide open for everybody.
Dr. Cineros?
Yes, hello?
Yes, again, your assessment of this particular trip and really what does it mean for the future of America and Cuban relationships?
I feel it's something that we really need as Cubans, and the people in Cuba, we can say that they are manifesting that, how important it is for us to have normal relationships with the United States. And I would say it's something that is needed in all Cuban levels, even if the government sometimes shows themselves somehow reticent to the idea of having normal relationships with Cuba. But yesterday, the meeting of President Obama with Cuban entrepreneurs, I think it was really important, showing how this needs to happen, and it will be, we believe that it will be useful for both countries.
One of the things that also took place on yesterday, one of the first questions dealt with political prisoners, and President Raul Castro responded by saying, give me a list, I'll release them tonight, to Jim Acosta of CNN. You're laughing at that. Your thoughts to his answer?
Well, yes, we were actually surprised we couldn't believe President Raul Castro's reaction, and what is and through the social media, all Cubans, we really were surprised. We couldn't believe that, and this is interesting how some Cuban Americans mostly have sent him actually lists. Because, everyone knows that, yes, in Cuba there is, yes.
So he asked for a list, and they said to him, Cleo, you also got a chuckle out of that.
Yeah, I want to see the list, too. She said that some people sent the list. Well, I want to see the list myself of the political prisoners.
I would have preferred to have President Castro then ask President Obama, well, what about Imam Jamil Al-Amin?
Absolutely. We have our own political prisoners.
We have our own political prisoners. And what would have been nice is, Imam Jamil Al-Amin. And to have President Obama.
Now, of course, now he was convicted of murder, serving time in prison. It took place in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, but we know that the whole thing was stacked and rigged, and that whole thing is bogus.
Yes.
And also, you mentioned Asada Shakur. It would have been great for President Obama to have brought an exoneration of her. He could have pulled that out of his pocket and said, by executive order, boom, she's done. That would have been a wonderful thing to have President Obama do.
Yes.
Dr. Cisneros, your final comment, please.
Well, it's politics, so I don't know how it would be, and we don't know. This is another important aspect. We don't actually know what is being discussed. We have an idea, the general idea, what is brought to us from from the news.
Right.
But I believe that a lot of those conversations are happening, not even now, but before, and didn't stop happening since this, and even before December 2014. So I don't know. I have the suspicion that those conversations are happening.
Okay.
When and how they will become public, this is well, we don't know.
All right, Dr. Sotomayor Cisneros, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, then, folks.
Start your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. News 1 Now with Roland Martin every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.